Now, how did you get started in the entertainment business, though?
I started working at Turner Broadcasting as an intern the day that my first day on the job was the day that CNN launched, and that was my first job. I worked in the marketing department. I had to call every cable company in America and find out if they had a cable dish and pass that information on to our distribution department.
And what year was this? Well,
Actually, I
Viacom
believe
was.
it's 81.
Oh, so I'm guessing Viacom was about to get started, though.
Yeah, it was in the early day. Viacom had not actually acquired MTV Networks by that time. I left Turner Broadcasting in 80. Gosh, what year was it? Probably 85, and joined MTV Networks and Viacom were combining roughly around that time.
Now, did that help you get Nickelodeon, first of all?
Yeah, well, Nickelodeon was one of the major networks within MTV Networks at the time. MTV was much stronger and had a stronger or a more powerful profile given the advent of video music at the time. Nickelodeon was just a small network looking to establish a fan base and build some ratings, um, and so when I joined MTV Networks, Nickelodeon was not the powerhouse that it is today.
Oh no, it wasn't. Actually, I'm just now thinking about it. It really came out before Viacom was about to launch, originally called Pinwheel in 1978, I want to say.
That's
And
right.
yeah, so basically you were there like after it became a powerhouse, or during the years when it really became a giant network, I must say. And when all this talk about Nickelodeon Studios in Florida is going to get started because you were there right before the opening launch event in 1990. So when you got hired to be the vice president of marketing,
That's right.
so there was the big opening events, your first real job for it.
Yeah, I had come. I was working with MTV Europe in London, and was asked by Jerry Laybourne, who was the president of Nickelodeon at the time, to come and run marketing for Nickelodeon Studios and to oversee all of the launch activities and to build a team to help open the studios and figure out the best way to integrate it into our overall brand marketing plan. So I came back to the United States. I think it was probably in February of 1990, and the studio opened Memorial Day or Memorial Weekend, I believe. I think it was Memorial Weekend, but it was early summer 1990, and my charge was to oversee all press activity, all the grand opening festivities, collaborating closely with Universal Studios at the time, um, and to and then run the marketing department from that point forward.
Awesome. Now, what was your first impression of the studio when you got there, though?
Well, first of all, Universal Studios was building what was intended to be Hollywood East, so there's a lot of excitement around the opening of the studios. Universal had committed to producing some movies and some film and some TV shows out of the facilities there. But Nickelodeon was really a driving force as it relates to television. We were going to utilize the studios as the first ever dedicated production facilities for the network. We had a lot of game shows that were very popular with kids at the time. The idea of combining attraction in a theme park with a TV production facility to this magnitude really had never been done before. And so there was a lot of excitement around it. It was Nickelodeon's first home base for kids and our production staff, and it was smack dab in the middle of the largest production facility on the East Coast. So it was exciting times.
Yes, it was. I personally feel like that studio really helped become a grounding force in the network during the 90s. Like, just to see all that production, the live tapings of the shows being taken there, it was really a good time and a good era for that.
Yeah, it was the first time anybody had really opened up the doors to a production facility and said, come in and see how we make our shows, come be part of our shows, come be a contestant in our shows, come sit in the audience. So it was revolutionary in many ways, and the magnitude of the production that was taking place at the time was just immense. We had 2, sometimes 3 sound stages all in production at the same time.
Yeah, yeah, I remember those sound stages. I was lucky enough to go visit there in 1994, believe it or not.
And how old were you in 1994?
I was 4 years old, I want to say.
Wow. And you remember the experience going through the studio?
You know what? That's a tricky thing because I don't remember, but I do remember going to the slime geyser though and taking pictures in front of it. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, the
yeah.
Slime Geyser was a major addition to the studios back after the studio opened, and then we introduced the Slime Geyser to give kids and families the opportunity to see slime up close and in person.
And that was opened that same year in 1992, right?
I don't remember exactly the timing, but it was soon after the opening of the studios, and it was our second ever live broadcast. We broadcast the grand opening of the geyser at that time with a live break-in on the network, and that was the second time we'd ever done that.
Awesome. And going back to the launch event of Nick Studios, like what would you first remember about that? Because I know there was so many things I hear online about how the rides kept breaking down at Universal and there were long delays to get in line and stuff. Like, was it a chaotic day looking back, or it was just a fun time event, or both?
It was both. It was a chaotic day because the entire park was opening for the first time. It was exciting because it was Nickelodeon's first ever production facility and theme park attraction. It was also our first ever live broadcast, if I remember correctly. And so there's a lot going on. We were very fortunate in that Nickelodeon Studios operated that opening day and was operated brilliantly. The production team did such a great job pulling off the grand opening telecast, and the attraction staff were terrific in allowing families to go through the facility. So we were up and running day one, and were very successful from that point forward.
Yes, yes, and Mark Summers was the host of that event all day long. He was the main host of that. And also another thing too was the celebrities who came to visit that day. Like I saw Steven Spielberg get slimed there on the.
That's right. Yeah. So in addition to all the grand opening festivities, the Universal had brought in all of their top talent. Nickelodeon had brought in our top talent. Mark Summers, who was host of Double Dare at the time, was master of ceremonies for the grand opening, and it was just a star-studded fan fest of Nickelodeon awesomeness, all in one grand opening celebration. It was quite a day in the history of Nickelodeon.
Yes, it was. It was. And now going to the Geyser launching, I talked to Tom Hennis, who actually created the Geyser, and he says that it was so much great to hear about the history of the Slime Geyser because he really feels like it was his most personal favorite thing to ever create. And for that taping, like, was it like televised for Nickelodeon? Because he said it was televised for another network too.
I don't remember if it was on another network, but I know for sure we broadcast it live with a live feed and a break into regularly scheduled programming to announce the grand opening of the Slime Geyser. We had a bunch of our talent was there. I can't remember the kid's name who hosted it for us, but he was terrific, and it was a very short ceremony, but it was meant to punctuate this new attraction in front of Nickelodeon Studios. I do remember we were concerned because we didn't know whether it would ever work. Nobody ever built a slime geyser before, so it was a prototype and it had been tested. But we were all crossing our fingers that it could fire on demand for the live broadcast, and sure enough, it did.
Yeah, was a kid's named Danny Gora. Is that
Yeah, that's right. That's
yeah,
right.
from Hi Honey I'm Home. Yeah, he said he was the one who launched that event. helped.
That's right.
Yes, that was him. And going to the geyser, like, oh my gosh, that was such an iconic figure to have there. Just like Green Machine, like as soon as you got there, for every person who walked into Universal and go to the left and see Nickelodeon right there, you were just like, wow, this is it. I'm finally here, you know?
That's right. It was a beacon. It was a way to celebrate, you know, welcoming guests to Nickelodeon Studios and to allow them to see their favorite substance, green slime, live and in action. And so it was a lot of fun.
Yes, it was. And what was a typical day like being there for you and being creating on the marketing there?
You know, every day was a little different. Your production environments are fluid environments. They're very dynamic. People are coming and going. Lots of talent coming to the building. And then you layer on top of that the attraction components, which included a tour of the sound stages for the viewing tubes, and then down to wardrobe and makeup and the gag kitchen, and then over to a game lab. You know, there's just constant activity in the building. And then, of course, this was a premier showcase for the company, so we were hosting all types of client events and special events at the facility. So it was very busy, very dynamic. And then in addition, we were located right in the middle of a theme park. So,
Mm.
you know, occasionally you could run out for lunch and ride a ride or see something new that Universal was doing. So it was certainly one of the most dynamic jobs I've ever been in.
Wow. And did you have a favorite ride to go on at Universal Studios, though?
I would say back then, my favorite attraction at Universal was Back to the Future. It
Mm.
was a motion simulator ride, first of its kind, never had been done on that scale, and used to love to ride that ride.
It's a classic thing. Like, yeah, everyone loves Back to the Future, and I love Jaws too. I love that ride, and yeah, just the whole old school method of movie based there and movie based rides, and with the theme of Nickelodeon there, I say the two things bounced off of each other. You could go into the park and go into visit a live TV or go behind the scenes of making TV. It was really, it's just a good thing, you know.
That's right. It was great attractions. Universal is known for doing terrific attractions with movie-based content, and I think they have some of the best attractions in the world.
Yeah, oh yes, it's probably one of the best amusement parks in the world, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, but going back to Nick, like, was there a particular show there that you loved visiting the set of, though?
You know, I liked them all. They were so, each of them had their own creative team assigned to them. There was talent involved. Each of them had their own way of connecting consumers. Um, um, Certainly the game shows were fun because they were very high energy and live, taped in front of a live studio audience. Double Dare in particular was one of my favorite shows, and that show put Nickelodeon on the map. And so it was a lot of fun to watch families enjoying Double Dare. But there were many others that really were meaningful productions for the company and also for the studio. That was another high energy show that was produced out of Nick Studios at Universal Studios, and kind of reinvented sports entertainment in a sense for kids. And really enjoyed seeing that show in production. The Aggro Crag was this big mountain
Mm.
that kids had to climb at the end. Very, very impactful show.
Yeah, I agree with those things, and that also Clarissa explains it all, and Nick Jr. being there too. Like when Nick Jr. got started there for all those shows, like Gullah Gullah and Allegra's Window and stuff, and Yurka's Castle. Like, wow, it's looking back, it was such a monumental thing for Children's Network at the time.
Yeah, it was, and like I said before, it was such a dynamic environment because of the quantity and quality of the programming that was being produced in that facility. Everything from preschool shows to narrative shows to game shows to sports entertainment shows like Guts. It was a terrific environment to work in.
It was. And how great was all the staff who worked there? And because I always hear positive stories about how it was one of the best career experiences in their life. Was it the same for you? For
Oh,
everyone?
certainly. Yeah, we were building what would become one of the premier production facilities in the world, particularly for kids. It was state-of-the-art technology. We had millions of people coming through the attraction. We were giving kids and families from around the world a chance to come and see their favorite shows being made and to share kind of the secrets of production with them. And it was at one of the most, one of the biggest and most famous theme parks in the world as well. So we always called Orlando Kid Capital of the World, and Nick Studios was kids headquarters. So it had a special place in kids' lives, and we got to be part of that.
And speaking of in the beginning when you said the whole Hollywood East thing for Orlando at the time, like it was being claimed as that for all the beginning of the movie and TV and film production being taken there, but it has decreased over the years. It's not really Hollywood anymore. From your years living and working there, was it a good time for being there?
Oh yeah, I mean there was a lot of energy around building production capacity and capabilities in Orlando. There was a lot of logic to that as well, with Disney being headquartered there, Universal building their second theme park and studio facility. And for many years, there was a lot of production happening out of those facilities. I think, over the years, recently, a lot of states have put into place production incentives that have changed the model a little bit. But back when I was at Nick Studios and many of my colleagues, it truly was a production mecca for television and film.
Yeah, because it's funny that you said other states claiming now, like Georgia, like there's all so many stuff going on in this state, like The Walking Dead and certain like Tyler Perry and reality shows. But man, there was something about Florida that just really had this common family friendly atmosphere to it, like especially with Nickelodeon being there in the forefront in the theme park capital of the world, I must say. But it was a good thing to have it all that production taking place there, and it was a different thing to be instead of not LA or New York.
Yeah, you're right. I think the recipe for success was um, Orlando, which is attraction capital of the world, uh, Nickelodeon, which had a connection to kids everywhere, uh, Florida, which has appeal because of the weather and the beaches, and then to layer in production capacity and Universal Studios, it was a great recipe uh, for production as well as attractions.
Yes, yes, it was. And I have to ask this, but were you ever slimed before?
Yes, I was. I actually have some pictures of me being slimed for the very first time. I've been slimed several times, but the first one happened on the set of Double Dare, and the bucket of slime that I was slimed with had been stored in the refrigerator for quite some time, so it was freezing cold, and the expression on my face is priceless.
Oh, that would be awesome because the slime it has to be refrigerated and it has to be cold in a gat kitchen, right?
Yeah, back then it did, and so it was a rude awakening when that slime hit me. It was extraordinarily cold. So but I still have those pictures, and gosh, that was probably 20, well, not yeah, 20, 25 years ago. No, not quite that, not that. Yeah, almost 25 years ago.
Wow. Yeah, because I was talking to Jason Harper who directed Slime Time Live, and he said once the slime hits you, everyone gets that like excruciating look on their face, like oh my god. Yeah, that must have been the same for you, huh?
That's right. It's a sense of joy and terror all together in one.
Right, because it's one. I think it's one of the highlights of your life getting slime. There's nothing like it.
Yeah, there's nothing else like it. Kids loved it. Kids uh, came from all over the world to be slimed at Nickelodeon Studios, and we were proud to do it.
Goodness, yes, yes. And one more thing, it tastes kind of good. It's a Swedish sour mixture, I have to say, because I tasted it before.
Yeah,
And
it's a flavorful substance. There are lots of different recipes, but certainly some of them were very tasty.
yes, yes. And inside the studio, it was such a colorful inside look of it because I seen all the props things and all the Ren and Stimpy murals on the wall and all the Nicktoon
Yeah,
stuff. Like, man, was it like a playful atmosphere every day going to work?
the closest thing I can describe it kid, I think the closest comparison would be like Willy Wonka's Chocolate Factory.
Hmm.
The energy that we captured on television permeated the building. So the people that worked there loved working with kids and families and creating entertainment. The space was very dynamic and energizing. It was designed to really create a productive and positive environment to produce all of this television that we were providing to kids around the world. So yes, it was fun. It was unlike any other working environment that I could imagine.
Yes. And did you ever get to keep any of the prop things from the studio today? Do you still have any?
I have one prop that is something that I'm really proud of, and it's the cover to the time capsule that we buried at the grand opening of the studios. And the cover articulates, that this was where the time capsule was buried, and to celebrate kids worldwide. And to my knowledge, when the studio closed, I was able the studio was going to toss out that particular item. I said, no, I'd like to keep that. And to my knowledge, there have probably been 50, 20, 50, I don't know how many millions of people have walked across that piece of aluminum, but I love it.
Wow. And yeah, that was 1982, that time capsule burial. Like, so how did
Yeah.
that whole thing come about? Like, were you guys just thinking about, hey, let's create the storage space where we could put all these different early 90s figures on it and have it be televised because it's such a good thing. Like, what was the whole process about planning that event?
Well, the idea was to create something special to celebrate kids of today and do it in a way that kids of the future could understand what it was like to be a kid back. I think the time capsule was due to be open in 50 years. So so we asked kids around the country to send us recommendations about what should go in the time capsule and what they thought kids of the future would like to see. And there were some terrific ideas. Kids were suggesting that we put Michael Jackson videos in because he was popular at the time. That one kid suggested we put pencils in because people of the future wouldn't be using pencils; they'd be using computers and other devices. And interestingly enough, that prediction's pretty much come true in a sense. So I happen to have the not only the cover of the capsule, but also a list of all the items that went into it, which I can't disclose because it's for future reference. But it's one of my favorite career mementos.
Because I remember it's on YouTube with Mike O'Malley and Joey Lawrence who hosted it. I'm sure there were other guests. I'm sure it's more longer, like who hosted it, right?
I don't recall all the talent that were there, but we did an on-air promotion for several weeks leading up to the burial of the time capsule, and asked, like I said earlier, to ask kids and to send us what they thought should go into it. So it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. And I think one of the biggest things was 1994 when the Kids' Choice was held there at Nickelodeon Studios, and Mark Weiner he got to host that segment because it was like an East to West Coast daily airing thing for that day. Do you remember that?
I do. Mark Weiner was terrific. Weinerville, what a show! That was
Hmm.
such a fun show and so unique and different. And he was a very popular host at Nickelodeon Studios. We actually hosted a number of different client events on the set of Wienerville, and it was just hilarious what he could do.
Also, a lot of people don't know this, but it's been rigged around online. But the 1,000th episode celebration, like, do you remember that? Also, it was
Oh
like,
yeah, yeah. I mean, there were so many different milestones that we achieved out of Nick Studios. That was what was so special about it. But yeah, we celebrated our 1,000th episode. I can't remember what it was at the time, but it was a big deal. We had a wall, a production credit wall, where we had plaques for all of the shows that
mm-hmm.
had been produced out of the studios, and over the years, it just became immense, the number of shows. I can't, to this date, I can't remember how many episodes or how many specific shows, but when you looked at that wall and it cataloged all of the different productions, it was pretty impressive.
But speaking of your years there, like, did you see a noticeable difference between the beginning and the late years when you left in Nick Studios and the attendance and the participation in it?
We know what changed most over the period that the studio was open is the network was the studio was open to fuel our need for game show production.
Mm-hmm.
And game shows require big audiences. They require a lot of energy. And so being at Nickelodeon Studios, at Universal Studios in Orlando, made a lot of sense because you had built-in audiences coming, and so it was a unique style of production. But over time, the network shifted to more long-form narrative shows like Clarissa Explains It All and 15 and others, and those shows did not require a studio audience. They didn't have quite the same production schedule that a game show did. You know, with a game show, we could shoot 3 episodes in a day, and that's a very lively production environment. With a narrative show, it might take a whole week to produce 1 episode. So the experience within the studio changed, particularly for the guest who was coming to see their shows being produced. And so that's probably the biggest change. And then also the network was starting to move into animation, and it was not an animation studio, so most of the animation production was being done in Los Angeles and overseas. That was the biggest driver in kind of the nature of the shift of the studios.
Yeah, it's funny because you are right that it was moving out of game shows, but still, like, the narration shows not requiring an audience was a big thing. But at the same time, it kind of worked because 15 shot 1 episode a day, and Clarissa was a big sitcom. It was a good thing, but there were other sitcoms like Kenan and Kel or Taina that has live studio audiences too. But still, like, I don't know why it just didn't led to its closure. Like, I'm not sure he details a lot, but I think it was such a good thing to have there, you know.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, it served a real purpose for the production department of the company, and but the nature of production shifted over the years, and game shows, like I said, required large facilities, lots of people, lots of production was going on, and the the nature of the experience for the guest coming to the studio changed over the years because of that, and that's why Game Lab in particular became such a exciting element of the experience. Was that kids got to play the games they saw at Nickelodeon and get slimed as well, and so that became a very important element of the experience at Nick Studios.
Yeah, the game lab because it was like a 45-minute test show where the host they could test out games and eventually slime a game. I always wonder if one of those games were ever used for the actual game shows for the network too.
That's a good question. I don't recall. We did test a lot of different games, and it started out as a testing laboratory, and it kind of took on a life of its own and became a part of the Nickelodeon experience, at least in live environments. and gave kids and families a chance to do the things they saw on television and also get to experience Nickelodeon firsthand. Particularly, every show we punctuated the end with a sliming, and that just it was terrific.
Yes, and that was taken by the genius mind of Annie Bergera and Chris Woods, and I remember Robert Morella, Greg Lee, and Bob Brandenburg, who are all a part of it, assisting development of the game lab too. So we have to thank them for doing that.
Oh, absolutely. They were brilliant in coming up with the solution of Game Lab as a component of the experience at Nick Studios. It really delivered on the promise of giving kids and families a chance to be part of Nickelodeon. And they worked so hard to not only create the experience, but to refresh it and make sure that it reflected the latest in terms of Nickelodeon entertainment.
And another popular thing was the tour, the studio tour, where the guests they could go up this escalator and see like a viewing gallery of rehearsal or taping being taken there too. Do you remember that? I'm sure you do.
Oh yeah. The viewing tubes into the studio facilities were terrific. They were guided by Universal tour guides that took kids and families through and described what was happening on the sound stages, and got to see the production. The director's booth, and so it was quite a peek inside the inner workings of a serious production facility.
Did you ever get to like wave up to them and could they see you working, or was that done on the first floor, or when you were like on the second floor doing working?
Well, anytime you're on the soundstage, it was highly likely that
Hmm.
you would be seen by people in the viewing tube. In fact, my office was not visible. I had an office within the core building, but occasionally I'd walk down to the soundstage and just see what was going on. And I remember one night walking down after work, and the soundstage was completely empty. It was kind of quiet. I was strolling around, kind of admiring, the sets and the work that had been done that day, and was just reflecting on what a wonderful place. And I looked back up, and there must have been 200 people in the viewing tube looking down at me, and I'd forgotten that the tour was still on. So you kind of had to be, cognizant of the fact that you were always on display in the facility.
The spotlight was on you that day, huh?
Yeah, because nothing else was going on in the soundstage, and I'm sure kids and families were like, "I wonder who that guy is walking around there down on the soundstage." So
Yeah, you were like the star that day, you're just for that TV show, huh? You finally get to
yeah,
see
so
what
I,
this
I
feels
waved
like.
back and smiled, and then went. Well, I think I left to go back home at the end of the day.
That's awesome. And do you have a particular favorite behind the scenes memory of being there? I'm sure with all the events there were, but was there something that really stuck out to you the most?
I have so many memories. They're between working with the terrific people who brought the studio to life every day, to meeting families who came from all over the world to see the studio and be part of it, to meeting a lot of the celebrities that gravitated towards the studio. People like Bill Cosby and Steven Spielberg and many others who came to the studios. Those were all really rich experiences. Um, but one of my favorite things to do with people, I was responsible for giving a lot of the tours, and the VIP tour staff reported into my department, and so we hosted a lot of VIPs. And one of my favorite aspects of the studios that most people never got to see was to take them, these guests, up to the catwalk, which was where all the lighting grids and production elements were housed in the ceiling. And it was a metal grid, and so you could see right through it. And we were up, I don't know, gosh, probably 40, 50 feet above the soundstage floor. And it was just such a wonderful way to see the facility, and very unique. I don't know if I'd be allowed to even take people up there today because of insurance liabilities, but back then, occasionally I would take a guest up there and show them what it was like.
Wow. And just so you guys could literally see everything? Wow.
Well, we were so high up above the soundstage. It was a little scary at times because of the height, but it was such a beautiful view of the soundstage.
Wow, it would have been nice if you took a picture of that too.
Yeah, yeah, good point.
Speaking of for Nickelodeon, like it's been gone for 9 years now. It's certainly missed by a lot of people. Would you like to see it be reopened one day? Nick Studios, do you think it should come back?
I think the great thing about Nickelodeon is that there's always a connection to kids and welcoming them into the world of Nickelodeon and being part of their experiences. And certainly at the time, Nickelodeon Studios had a place in our production um, world and also our attraction experiences. And I have very fond memories of it. It was a great experience and something that I think changed Nickelodeon forever.
Yes, yeah, it did. I mean, there's so many good things about it, like the tapings there, and so many people saying, "I want to be a director one day," and meeting your favorite stars up close in front. Like, it's just that's a good thing. But what do you think made it so great and special, in your opinion?
I think the mission at the time for Nickelodeon, and still to this day, is to create meaningful, positive entertainment for kids. And when when you can impact kids' lives and provide them with entertainment, but also we had news shows, Nick News with Linda Ellerby. We were really shaping the way kids saw the world, and also reflecting the way the kids saw the world. So uh, it was impactful. It was at a time when Nickelodeon was going from worst to first in the ratings. So it was very dynamic and very exciting, and that's what made it so unique. Is that it was all happening out of this one facility down in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, it was. I mean, that's why I wanted to create this project because I wanted to see what it was like for all of you guys to be there and just see the fun and joy it brought to so many people's lives. I think even adults loved being there too, taking their kids along there too. It's such a positive thing to have there in the world of entertainment. I think there needs to be more audience and more quality, good TV.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also I remember Nick News with Linda Ellaby and all the David Cassidy Shrine, like and Melissa Etheridge, music events that took there too. I was just thinking, I just not thought about that.
Yeah, Linda Ellerby shot a number of different shows there, and she was great when she was around. She brought such credibility to news events and trying to bring them to life in a way that connected with kids directly. And nobody else was doing this. She was leading the charge and pioneering a new style of news for kids.
Yes, and she still is too. Like it's really
Yep.
big ups to her.
Well, good for you for taking this initiative on and highlighting all the great work that was done out of Nick Studios. Very impactful. It was a very impactful workplace, and it was changing lives and entertaining kids all around the world. That's for sure.
Yeah, I mean it's done a lot, so many great things, and people still talk about that on blog sources and message boards about how that place was just like no other place in the world. I still think no other studio can offer tours like that or go behind the scenes or see stuff like that.
Yeah,
Yes,
absolutely.
yes, but I so enjoyed talking to you today, Howard. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to do this conversation with me.
Yeah, my pleasure, Bilal. It's great to meet you over the phone, and look forward to staying connected.
Oh yes, definitely. Actually, I now regret we're both in Atlanta. You're in Atlanta, right?
That's right. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm here in Atlanta now.
Yeah, I should have met up with you like to do the interview, but now I'm thinking about it. That would have been
Well, if you need anything else, let me know. Happy to help in any way I can.
okay. That is perfect. Thank you so much, and I'll talk to you later, and I'll get the interview out to you in a few days.
Okay, great, Bilal. Appreciate it.
All right, take care. Bye bye.
Okay, bye bye.